it looks like they're already making a transition. The Atlanta Falcons are from Kirk Cousins to Michael Penix Jr. after Kirk Cousins had a terrible outing the last 5 games, 1 touchdown, 9 picks. He had a 4-game streak of no touchdowns and 2 picks per game. It was abysmal to watch. Kirk Cousins, even from the get-go, week 1 against Pittsburgh, seemed immobile. Football seemed like it was dying. And here we come to now, the 8th overall pick of this past year's draft. Michael Penix is now going to be starting for the Atlanta Falcons. His first matchup, fortunately, I would say, is against the New York Giants, and they are currently 8.5-point favorites in this game. So my question to you is, do you think it was smart for the Falcons to bench Kirk Cousins at this point and then sub in rookie quarterback Michael Penix?
I think it's a huge mistake. Okay, the Falcons are 7-7. They still got a good shot for the playoffs. They got I wouldn't say it's an easy schedule because they're playing the Commanders at the Commanders, not this week but next week, and then they end the season against the Panthers, which they should be able to win that game. Looks like they can beat the Giants. I think that having Cousins in there against the Giants could be a confidence builder for him. He has played poorly. They did win last week, right? They did win last week. He had a TD pass in that game. He did have 1 interception. It wasn't one of his best games, 11 for 17 for only 112 yards. But they got a great running game. Why aren't they doing more with that when the quarterback's not going so great? Run the ball. You got Robinson. There's your run. He had 22 carries for 125 yards last week in the win. I'd say let Cousins be a little bit of a game manager for a while. And run the ball more, and then the play-action pass would work better. Go to the dink and dunk for a while. I think the reason that Cousins has had a hard time, he's been trying to thread the needle too much. He's been throwing into very tight coverages and getting some interceptions. But against the first team in the division, the Bucs, he had 785 yards in the 2 games, 8 TDs, and 1 interception. So the guy can play football. He says, I didn't forget how to play quarterback. He's been a real professional about this. He's gone along with it, but I think it's a huge mistake by Raheem Morris to do this right now. Just think, if Penix, they should beat the Giants. They could have, Tim Boyle in at quarterback there, and they probably could beat the Giants. I think that would be a good game to get the running game going with Cousins out there. And try the dink and dunk to try to be more of a little bit of a game manager until he finds his stride again, because he's a professional. He's been in the league a long time. He's had a lot of success. And he says, I did not forget how to play quarterback. I agree with that. And I think that if Penix winds up beating the Giants, which I think he will, let's say they beat somehow, I don't think they can beat the Commanders with Penix playing quarterback. Maybe they can beat the Panthers. If somehow the Buccaneers stumble here, which I don't think they will, I predicted they'd wind up winning out and taking this division. But if somehow they didn't, what's Penix going to be like in the playoffs? Right? The guy has hardly taken a snap so far this year. I just think it's a huge mistake. I think it could hurt Penix too. I think this could hurt his confidence if he winds up laying an egg here and really he's down the road is what they have a plan for him. I just think it's a bad mistake.
I'm actually on the opposite side of this.
I'm not surprised.
Even though I had faith in Kirk Cousins actually being successful because they had Drake London, Kyle Pitts, Bijan Robinson last year. They had the number 4 offensive line. Their defense is okay on paper. They added Justin Simmons and they had Jesse Bates and everything like that. They added Matt Judon in this, they traded him for the Patriots. I thought Kirk Cousins would be significantly better than he is currently. And I could say that I was actually wrong. Yes, he's 7-7. But he should be like at least 9-5. At least. Because you can't go on a 5-game streak if you're the quarterback who was actually, if we're being honest here, on an MVP trajectory last year with the Minnesota Vikings before he tore his ACL. He had Achilles. He ruptured his Achilles. He was on an MVP level. That's why you brought him in. That's why you paid him the $100 million guaranteed and the 4 years, $180 million. That's why you brought him in. And what you didn't expect for him to do is have no arm strength, have no, real confidence, I would say, in his Achilles, especially early on. He is immobile. When he gets out of the pocket, he can't do anything. In the past 5 games, 1 touchdown, 9 picks, a 63.8 passer rating, and 62.6% completion percentage. That's not what they're paying for. Michael Penix has a better arm. He's more athletic. He's more mobile. He could do more. They've been trying the dink and the dunk just because Kirk Cousins has no arm strength. There were several opportunities, and there have been several moments where Kirk Cousins throws it outside. By the way, he can't even throw it outside, but when he does, the ball dies 5 yards before they even get to the receiver. That's what Kirk Cousins is now. Now, I don't know if there's a way next year potentially, because I think that already they're going to have to bite the bullet on Kirk Cousins. They're going to trade him probably, because I do not see Kirk Cousins stepping in at number 18 for the Atlanta Falcons anytime the rest of the season, unless Penix absolutely craps the bed, which I don't think there's really an opportunity for him to do that, because the Falcons' schedule isn't even that difficult the rest of the year, truthfully, because they play the Giants, the Commanders, and the Panthers. The Commanders are the only team that actually has a shot at beating them. And I think it's a pretty decent shot, because their defense, again, is still pretty poor. But the Giants are going to beat the crap out of, and yeah, we could say that Bryce Young had a resurgence. I'm not. They just lost to the Dallas Cowboys as favorites for the first time in 2 years, and they lost by, I think, 13 points? Something like that. It was a 30-17, if I got that right. I could be wrong. I'm not looking at it right now. But they just lost to the Cowboys. That was the easiest pick, by the way, of the week. I don't know why I didn't put it in my Harvey Hot Hand. But Penix should have a relatively easy time, because they're playing the Giants, who are tied for the worst record in the NFL. Then they go up against the Commanders, who that is a challenge. And then they go up against the Carolina Panthers, who have one of the worst records in the NFL. So Penix should be fine. But to have 18 touchdowns and 16 interceptions, that's bad. That's not what you got paid $100 million guaranteed to do.
I think another mistake they're making here is in the front office. If they think that they're going to part ways with Kirk Cousins, his trade value has gone down to nothing. Right? Who's going to give anything for him? They're going to have to take back tons of his salary.
Not really.
You know, I think they will.
Really.
I think they'll have to take back tons of his salary. If they let him play out, he might resurrect himself here. And they might actually get into the playoffs. I think they have a better chance of winning a playoff game, or being competitive in the playoff game with him at quarterback than Penix, who hasn't played at all. I just don't. I think this is a bad mistake.
I don't see it as a bad mistake, because what are you going to do? You just had a 5-game spurt. Who, yes, your team, I want to make sure I'm completely accurate with this. Your team in the past 5 games has won 1 game. And you won. You beat the Raiders.
They won last week
in spite of Kirk Cousins.
You're benching him when he won the game,
because you won in spite.
He's also 7-7. He put him in a position. He put him in a position to make the playoffs this year. He's held the early games of the year. He had some fantastic games there. We watched some of them.
2 games
Raheem
against the
Morris
Denver Buccaneers.
was kissing him on the sidelines.
2 games against the Buccaneers.
Yeah.
That's it.
And they're 7-7. They still have a shot at the playoffs. They're benching him. I think that's a mistake.
The past 5 games, you have won 1 singular game.
Yeah.
And in that time frame, because it is that bad, Kirk Cousins has thrown 4 interceptions in one of those games. You could have beaten the Los Angeles Chargers, because you held them to 17 points.
No, Jared Goff had a game. He threw 5 interceptions in.
But think about what happened. The offense was able to help out the defense.
Yeah, well, in the Falcons' case, the team isn't that good. The team isn't good enough to do that.
You just told me they have so many players.
But the team isn't good enough to recover from a 4-interception game.
That's why you get
the Lions did it. They recovered from a 5-interception game.
Because you have a competent quarterback.
Yeah, well... He threw 5 interceptions in that game. He was not competent in that game.
Okay.
They didn't give up on him. They didn't give up on him, and he's still in there.
Of course not, because right now they have, 12-2, something like that?
Yeah. Well, I just think that, you have a great running game. Go to some of the other. De-emphasize the pass a little bit. But the defense is supposed to be good. Keep the other offense on, keep the other offense off the field. I think there's other things you could do, rather than benching the guy you gave $180 million contract to. You got to. I would have stuck with him through the rest of the season. And Penix, he hasn't played. What if he goes out? What if he goes out and throws 4 interceptions against the Giants?
That is highly unlikely, because the Giants just got their 2nd interception of the season.
Okay,
I think last week.
What happens if that happens? What would you do then? What are you going to do if Penix goes out and he's terrible?
Well, then you hang your head in shame and say we're just a bad team. But both quarterbacks are.
Would you put Cousins back in then?
I think there's an opportunity. Yeah, I might.
Yeah, well.
I think that's a shot. It's not out of the realm of possibility. You put back in Kirk Cousins. But to take him out because he just had a terrible streak of turnovers and no touchdowns.
I think the Falcons have one of the worst front offices in the NFL. They had a chance to get Bill Belichick and they blew it.
Well, that's a Bill Belichick
That would
problem.
there'd be a different scenario now with all those players that they have, right? And Bill Belichick is their coach. The defense would have played a lot better than it's played so far.
Davis Mills might be the starter of that team.
The offense would be whatever it was. They would be running the ball more. That's what Bill Belichick would do. He'd run the ball and let the defense dictate the score more.
Their defense isn't good, though. It's bottom 12. That's 20th in the league.
Okay, but it would be better under Belichick. They have some good players on defense. They have some very good players on defense.
I agree.
And why have they underperformed then?
Because Kirk Cousins can't stop turning the ball over.
No, that's not the defense.
You said why are they?
Why is the defense
more successful?
Why is the defense better?
That's underperformed. It's bad scheme because they kept
bad scheme.
Well, hold on.
Thank you for making my argument.
Well, first of all, that's not necessarily Bill Belichick. That could be Jimmy Lake's issue. He's the defensive coordinator because they decided to keep being a top 5 blitz team when they were the worst quarterback pressure rate team. Change something up. Drop more players back into coverage because your passing defense is 24th in the league.
Okay, well,
but first of all, hold on. I want to make this point again because we talked about it last Tuesday when you kept talking about how this Patriots team might be better if Belichick was still the head coach, or for instance any other team for that matter. The defense was the number 7 defense for the Patriots last year, but the offense I think was either the worst, second, or third worst, and the record was 4-13. Defense does not win in this league anymore.
But the Falcons have a much better offense than the Patriots.
That I agree with.
They have a lot more players. The running game could be much better. The running game for the Falcons with one of the best running backs in the league. You haven't heard boo about him this year, Robinson. Where the hell is he? What's happened? They should have been emphasizing him more. I kind of
agree with that.
Why didn't they emphasize Robinson more? He's one of the best backs in the league.
I don't disagree. That's on Zach Robinson.
I mean, he had 22. He had 22 carries last week for 125 yards. That's a winning formula.
Yeah, and we talk about all these teams. We talk about the Ravens. We talk about the Eagles. We talk about teams who have really good running backs, and that's how they're winning. Well, I bring it up. It's a very, for the Ravens, a very simple checklist, which if they don't follow, which they didn't the last time they played the Steelers, they play the Steelers this week, they will lose games, which is Lamar throws it under 30 times, and Derek Carney runs it more than 20. That's their winning formula. They're undefeated when that happens. Now, I don't know if that's the same. I need to crunch the numbers when it comes to the Atlanta Falcons. But what I do know is you can't have a quarterback who keeps turning the ball over all the time. And by the way, who is immobile, who can't see the field very well, and who is literally a statue in the pocket. The pocket quarterback is getting eradicated from the NFL in rapid time. Kirk Cousins may be the last dying breed.
We'll see what happens. We're going to see what happens. My prediction is they'll regret it.
And I'm saying all this. I still expect the Falcons to go out there and win and cover the point spread this week, just because I think that the Giants are that bad. Mm-hmm. And by the way, I just want to point this out.
I picked him too, but it could go the other way.
I can't see it going the other way. I really can't. Because things would need to go so poorly for the Falcons. You would need to have a Michael Penix 4 interception game, 3 interception game, which it could happen. But I think
we don't know anything about Michael Penix. He has not played football in the NFL. We don't know anything about him.
He had a couple snaps, but you talk about I understand.
We know nothing about him. They're counting on. They're a team that could make the playoffs, and they're counting on a guy who we know nothing about.
Well, no. Here's where I think that we still might not see a lot of Penix, because they're gonna play him safe. Now, obviously, they're gonna say that, and apparently they kept the brakes on Kirk Cousins. But for me, I'm looking at it like, well, the Giants have the second worst running defense in the league. They're going to do a lot of play action. They're going to do a lot of runs, which is what they should do. They should have done with Kirk Cousins. He also, Penix in college played a lot of from the shotgun. Kirk Cousins, we saw, had an issue in the shotgun. He didn't operate it very well. So I think Penix is going to be an upgrade. Now, I think there's questions about what they do next year, which I'm sure we'll have a conversation in the offseason about, because you just got benched towards the end of the season, when your team is at a 500 record and you just got a contract this past offseason.
Yeah.
And they're probably
That's why I think the front office, this is a huge mistake because they're going to wind up, let's say Penix winds up playing out the season. I don't think they're going to make the playoffs. If he's and if they do, they won't go anywhere because this guy's never played any football yet. So that means Cousins is out, right? He's worthless. His worth is dropped dramatically. They're going to have to take back a huge amount of his salary. I think their front office is terrible. I really do. I think they're miserable. This is a strategic blunder.
I actually
they're
don't
grasping
think so.
At straws. They're desperate. They're
desperate
so. When they don't have to be. They're showing desperation when they really don't have to.
Well, obviously, the first potential
it's going to cost them big time, both money-wise and
not as much as you're thinking right now, because if they do trade him, let's say they do a post-June 1st trade, this following season, 2025, their dead cap hit's only $12.5 million. The majority gets put on 2026 at $25 million.
Who's going to pick up that big salary? They won't have to. They're going to tell the Falcons.
Pay it.
Yeah, the Falcons are going to pay it.
And why wouldn't they if they want to move? If they want to keep going with Penix?
Because if they let Kirk Cousins play and somehow he resurrected himself and they in the last game of the season, they have a shot at the playoffs and somehow they don't make it. Well, Kirk Cousins still has value. As it looks now, they're saying he's valueless. We're starting a rookie quarterback who's never played in the NFL. We don't know what we have with him, but we're giving up with a 7-7 record because we think Kirk Cousins is done.
Well,
that's what they're saying.
Well, we had this conversation with John where you guys were saying with Kevin O'Connell, Daniel Jones will compete for the starting job next season for the Vikings.
I guarantee. I say that he will be the starter.
I can say the exact same thing with Daniel Jones. He put up a crap product this year, couldn't do anything offensively. He hasn't done anything for the past 2 seasons after he got that contract. What makes you so sure that he'll do it this time? It's the same exact argument you're making, except this time you're saying, well, no, Kirk Cousins will be fine. Show it to me. I'm
not saying he'll be fine.
He could have a resurgence.
He could have a resurgence. He's a
based on what info?
He's a veteran player. He says, I didn't forget how to play quarterback.
So is Daniel Jones. Yeah, correct. He knows how to hit. He knows how to say hike, step back in the pocket, and throw the football. The only issue is this season he can't differentiate between defenders and his own teammates because he's throwing it to the defenders a lot more.
Yeah, well.
18 touchdowns, 16 picks. That's an issue.
We'll see what happens.
And you know what? I'm excited to see it because I think I was an advocate for Kirk Cousins. I thought it was a great move because you go to what was, at least at the time, the worst division in the NFL. The NFC South has been the worst division, although I think that award this season goes to the AFC South. That division is abysmal this year. And I thought Russell Wilson should have gone to the Falcons as well because I think at the time they had Arthur Smith and they had a more mobile system. But this was an opportunity in one of the worst divisions in football to succeed. And Kirk Cousins did that beautifully against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Not really against anybody else. He had 1 or 2 good games. But outside of that, it's pick. 5 games.
Lately, it's been pick.
Right. 5 games. 1 touchdown, 9 interceptions.
Well, I think they made a mistake.
That's 0.2 touchdowns to nearly 1 interception.
You think the Giants are happier that they're playing against Michael Penix than Kirk Cousins? I think they are. They're probably saying, what the hell happened?
I'm going to go with no because they don't have any film on him. How are they going to scheme for him? You're going to have to guess. You're going to have to guess because you haven't seen anything on him. It's the same thing with interim head coaches. How many times have we seen interim head coaches, their first game, pull out a crazy victory? Yeah. I think we've seen it twice this season.
Yeah, the Saints.
The Saints was one, and that was a crazy victory. I picked against them, and I didn't feel good about it because of the
Bears haven't been able to do that.
The Bears are just an abomination of a franchise. So, yeah. Who knows? Kirk Cousins is not going to be back on the Falcons next year. We'll have a conversation in the offseason about it because there'll be rumors about them moving off. We'll hit trade rumors. I'm sure the Giants. You know what? I'm going to throw this out here. I don't know if it'll stick. You could write it down, crucify me later on if it's wrong. Kirk Cousins to the Giants. Giants pick up an offensive lineman or some other positional player. Then they go out and get Arch Manning next year.
Maybe.
Throwing that out there. I don't know if it'll stick. I don't know if it'll make sense.
I'm saying Kirk Cousins
will be
back in there.
Because think about it. John Mara wanted to go out and get Daniel Jones because he resembled Eli Manning. Well, how about you get one of the Manning family members and say, you know what? Let's just make it full circle. Arch Manning will be the next future of our franchise.
Now, that would be a good move for the Giants, probably.
I think probably.
My prediction,
more this
Kirk Cousins will be back in there before the end of the season. I'm pretty sure. He'll be playing against the Commanders next week.
Oh, boy. Hi, everybody. Thank you for watching this clip of the Harvey Hour. If you want to watch the full show, you can by clicking the eye in the top right-hand corner right now. If you want to take the show with you on the go, it is available wherever you get your podcast. We go live here on YouTube every single Tuesday and Friday at 6:30 p.m. Eastern. So make sure you hit that like button, that subscribe button, and the notification bell to get notified whenever we upload a video and whenever we go live.